All right, everybody. Back at it again. Here we are at No Revolution because KNOW Revolution. In a world of people that just run with the herd, thinking for yourself is, in fact, a revolutionary idea. And we're going to run upstream everything that you run into through your life as far as how people go about doing things, the norms that are out there that people have automatically fallen into, accepted value structures, etc., etc. Most of the times when you see people and groups reacting to any given thing, all you have to do is take a little look a little further upstream. Say you're standing in a river and there's waves. Well, there's rocks and things below the surface that are creating those waves. Just go upstream and see what's going on. See what the cause and the root issue is. And when it comes to your own life, take a look at the accepted values of society and what you've been trained into from a young age. Things that people usually don't ever question because everyone else is doing the same exact thing. And that's exactly what we're going to get into today. This one's going to be pretty short. From here on out, I'm going to be trying to keep things shorter simply because I think the average attention span is at, shall I say, competition with the flies on the wall or the ants on the sidewalk level. So, getting too deep too quick, I think people have a little hard time with that. Anyway, today we're going to talk about logic, and simply how to logic. The example that I'm going to use, a couple of them are extremely simple and intentionally meant to irritate a lot of people because the very institutions that the majority of people have been subjected to are perfect examples of just what a failure they absolutely are. So, how to logic? Well, in this particular situation, I'm going to be talking about goals, what we're told we're supposed to do, and how to go about doing those things according to how most people are indoctrinated into believing those things need to be done. And the primary examples are going to be just public schooling and how teachers react to that, including some of the subjects that they get into. We're told and taught and brainwashed into this idea in school that we go to school because we need an education, I mean, it's just a stupid hierarchy of bullshit. But we need this education so that we can go out and get a good job, and that good job is therefore somehow or another magically going to propel us into a better lifestyle. In order to have that better lifestyle or that good lifestyle, then the education and the system of how that happens is part of the requirement. And so we sit there like good little idiots, and we take we take in a very crappy education and a very substandard education. And it's very easy to debunk the entire system if you just use some simple logic and a few questions. Of course, they're not going to teach you what to question, who to question, or how to question, because it's not about how to think independently. It's about how to fit in so that you can become good little tax cattle for an elite group of people that do nothing and add nothing to society. They don't add services. They are a bureaucratic parasite on whatever limited productivity that you're able to accomplish with your crappy education. And proof of this is, and I've brought this up before, but keeping it short, say you are in 5th grade and you stand up and you say, "Hey, teacher, why are we here?" Well, the question is going to get the answer somewhere along the line of, well, isn't it obvious you're here to get an education because you need to be smart enough to be able to go out and get a good job And so therefore you say, okay, well, what is a good job? Well, obviously a good job, and according to how the system operates, is something that can make you some good money. So, all right, if you want to make good money, then you can simply ask the teacher, okay, what's good money, et cetera, et cetera. Teacher may have some dumbass subjective viewpoints, obviously. Probably not going to tell you how much they make or what lack thereof they do. And if you ask around a little bit, you're going to come to find out that, all right, say making good money is, $500,000 a year. To me, that would be some acceptable good money, somewhere along the line. It's not a lot, but it's plenty enough, more than what 99% of people out there are making. So, fifth grader asks, okay, teacher, I think good money's $500,000 a year. All right. Can you teach me how to make that? And the teacher's going to be like, well, that's not the point. All the fucking deflection you're ever going to run into. Then on top of that, they're going to get pissy and tell you to sit down and all that type of stuff. And so you can drop the standard, say, well, how about $100,000 a year? All right. It's definitely not common whatsoever for any teachers to be making that in elementary school. So how about $60,000? How about, whatever quote unquote reasonable thing, and these days 60,000 ain't that much. So we easily take a look and say, okay, the reality of it is that there's not hardly a single teacher in the entire structure who can teach you how to actually be truly monetarily successful in the aspect of, if that's what you're there for, is to get an education and blah, 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 blah. They suck at it. They completely suck at it. The whole system sucks at it because it does not teach you how to do exactly what they tell you it is there to do. The vast majority of people coming out of school barely have the ability to pass the most basic entrance exams just to get into college. And those exams are a lot less stringent than they used to be decades and decades ago. And that's all part of the whole, system of dumbing people down so that they don't think critically for themselves. So if you, and this is where the revolution of things come in, it's a revolution of thought. If you actually want to be truly successful or independently wealthy or whatever you want to come down and talk about with it, if you're not getting that generationally from your family, which very few people do, how do you go about doing it? So you take a look at all the people out there who have done it, and I can guarantee you it's not because they followed all the systems and the rules that everybody else seems to play by. It's because they stepped outside of it and went and did it a completely different way than what you are indoctrinated to do. So logic this stuff out. If you were looking back in fifth grade, if you stood up and said, what the hell am I doing here? For most people, vast majority of people, school was something that was boring. It was boring. It was not that interesting. It had more to do, particularly for smarter kids, it has way more to do with an authoritarian indoctrination structure and just being a good little follow the rules person, because as soon as you didn't follow the rules or you pushed back a little bit, against these teachers and the stupid curriculums that they put you through, 90% of which was a bunch of lies when it comes down to history and all that other type of crud anyway. Again, indoctrinating you into, dumb belief systems. Here's a great example of that. Okay, the Civil War. The Civil War was, as far as what they tell you it was all about, was secession from the federal union, where the southern states wanted to secede. And in talking a little bit about this with one of my friends, he brought up the particular, he's all into the nuance and all that, which is good. But he brought up the particular thing of it. And the thing that triggered it was the agreement in the Constitution. and the laws therein for a president to be a president. There were certain qualifications they had to have. I mean, nowadays, most people, if they have any idea of it at all, probably about the only thing that they're going to remember, and I'm just a layman when it comes to that, but they're going to probably remember that the minimum age for a president, I think, was 35 or something like that. But anyway, there's legal requirements that they had to be this, and they couldn't be certain other things. They had to be a natural-born U.S., individual, or, et cetera, et cetera. There's again, a list of qualifications, a list of metrics that need to be followed and adhered to. One of those things was that the president could not be a lawyer. That's all there was to it. Can't be a lawyer. Just can't be a lawyer. Well, Abraham Lincoln was a lawyer, and the South said, oh, you're just going to shove this through? We don't agree with this. But the majority ruled on it, and it was an illegal and, quite honestly, invalid presidency because of it. They said, we don't want nothing to do with it. And so they exercised what was their legal right to, and peaceful legal right to say, no, we're not adhering to this anymore because you're not following the rules. And if you're not going to follow the rules that we all signed up to begin with, then there is no such thing as a federal government any longer. There is no such thing because you're just doing whatever the hell you want. And that's exactly what they did. And so what did the North do? They started a war. That's all there is to it. They started a war and they genocided lots and lots and lots of their own people. And since that point in time, that should have been, and we weren't taught this, the reality of it. We were taught, most of people that I know would think that the Civil War was fought about slavery. Well, that's because that story has been shoved into things, et cetera, et cetera. And even that just came down to a situation where in the North, they propagated the idea to the people in the South that if you fought for the North, well, then we'd, as long as we won, then you'd be freed. And so it was basically, they were just running out of bodies. It was not the initial way that things had started in that, but they definitely could use the bodies to, kill off, et cetera, the fodder of things. But regardless of that, the reality of it is the federal government within, I don't recall exactly how many years it was, but it was within the first 70 years of its existence. I believe it's something close to that. I remember there's X amount of presidencies that went through, not very many, but in a very short order, the federal government had already overstepped and broken its own rules and violated the Constitution by instilling a president who was a lawyer, and they had already dealt with that in Europe, understanding just what a mess that creates and all the legalese that goes with it to allow a ruling class to conscript and use and steal and illegally get gains from its constituents, the standard people. And they didn't want that. The people didn't want it. That's why they were okay with it, to begin with and moved forward the way that they did. And this is another reason why I think that, this is my opinion, that, most of the founding fathers, if not all of them, were full of shit anyway and just in it for their own game. I mean, granted, they didn't want Britain as their rulers, but on the flip side of it, they couldn't let go of the whole concept of having some central power structure, and that alone is enough of a warning for me to just raise my hand and say, well, you bunch of retards, there's the problem inherently. You can't do this stuff anymore. And if you hadn't learned already, through every single civilization that has risen and fallen and risen and fallen, you come to find out that the only thing that exists when you tear away the veil of what lies behind any centralized power system when it comes to government, that particular kind of system, are families that gain massive amounts of power and authority through force and extortion with this veil of government between themselves and the average people. And from time to time, and I would say throughout history on the regular, when that veil drops, suddenly, in a very short order, if not immediately, when the people understand that the government's just an abstraction of a few very, very powerful families behind things, those families stand the judgment and the opportunity to suddenly become non-living anymore, and often that's the way it goes. There are oftentimes, even within the families, that the family structures will have fall guys and fall women, because they just have to have their part too, where there's relatives within the family structure that are set up as the sacrificial lambs just in case that type of stuff happens, where the common rabble revolt and get their pound of flesh. Anyhow, coming back to logic, why anybody would ever expect anything from the Constitution to be followed or even to exist anymore, when what we've been living under from day one, or within the first very short period of time within this government structure here in the West, in the States, it's illegitimate from day one. You know, these people, or at least 70 years into it, they genocided their own people. They killed off shit tons of people fighting during the Civil War over, again, a completely illegal operation. The South had every right to secede from the Union because they lied. They're like, no, we're not going to follow our own rules. And knowing exactly what a shit show that becomes, they says, no, we don't want to be a part of it. They had the legal right to say, no, that's, and peacefully, you know, hey, go do your thing. We know it's going to turn into a shit show. We'll just stay down here and do our thing. And the North just couldn't handle it. No, we're going to brutalize you, you know, because that's how we get things done. And that's what governments do at the core of it. That's exactly what you're dealing with at any given point in time. And so anybody that wants to come along and be like, oh, but there's laws, rule of law, that's another dumbass thing. Well, how many times have laws been passed that do completely immoral things? Keeping in mind that for everybody who's all worried about people's rights, you know, particularly minorities' rights, it was the law that made slavery legal. That was the law. So follow the law. Take a look at, so when we decide at this point in time to say, well, there should be a law against this or a law for that or whatever. It's like, well, all right, check your morality on that shit first. And take a look at how many times in history the law has been a completely fucked up situation that served primarily the government and the people behind it, and totally screwed over the average person because the morality of the people in government or the families that run it are completely fucked up. But it's legal. So next time you want to use the term of, you know, what's legal and what's not, well, remember all the shit that has been legal in the past that is now illegal. And then some of this shit that used to be illegal that's legal now doesn't mean it's good. But again, when you can't think for yourself and you don't think for yourself, that's what you end up with, is a situation where you don't even know what your values are because you never checked them against anything. And then as soon as someone pushes back against it a little bit and just says, well, what about this situation? You automatically, most people, they just do their knee-jerk reaction bullshit and freak the fuck out. And the next thing you know, you can't even have a conversation because the people feel that they're personally attacked because they're invested in something that they never gave any real thought to and never tested it, against history or even their own experiences somewhere along the line. But back to critical thought. So this whole thing of all these systems that have been around and, whether it's our government or anything like that, just a little bit of critical thought, you're like, hey, wait a second. This doesn't make any sense. So fuck this shit. At least if I'm going to go to school, could you at least tell me the truth? Well, no. They're not going to, because their investment is to keep it simple, keep it easy. And as soon as, if I challenge, and I have plenty of times, and all they do is get upset and pissed off because it exposes them for being part of a irresponsible and poorly run system where they're very ineffective and they really don't do all that good of a job no matter what. And the other part too is if there were good ones in there, if there were actually any good teachers involved in any of that shit somewhere, and I'm not saying that there maybe haven't been from time to time, but most of them, if they were that good, if they really cared that much, and if they had that kind of moral value and moral compass about them to be like, oh, it's all about the kids, they wouldn't be part of that system to begin with, because they know for a fact, again, anybody with 2 brain cells to put together can really easily figure out that during the prime, easily learning period in any human's life is the younger you are, the easier it is to learn new things, because you don't even know what your limitations are. You just go for it. And in that situation, if it takes you 12 freaking years just to get some basic shit down to the point where the best thing that they're able to do after 12 years is get you a position as a minimum wage, slave somewhere, that's a shit system. It doesn't take 12 years to train somebody to do something where they could actually add enough value to society where they could make a pretty good living. It doesn't take 12 fucking years. And you don't have to pump them full of all this stupid-ass indoctrination where they're lying to you half the time anyway. That's why I brought up the thing of the Civil War. Why didn't they tell you the truth? Well, the reason that the South wanted to secede is because the North did illegal shit in the election. There you go. That would be telling the truth. Did they ever do that? Nope. Not once. Nope. Can't do that. Because it would be exposing the entire system of which they are part, public school. It'd be exposing it as the tyrannical fucking force that it is. Okay, so I digress from that. Here's point 2 of logic it out. Using public school as a subject again. So if I come up and I say, all right, I'll posit the idea the public schooling system is a predatory indoctrination camp, okay? Predatory. Preys upon you to dumb you down, to make you an idiot. Now, if you bring that up to any teacher, they're going to get all defensive and pissed off and et cetera, tell you how wrong you are and all that. And then you can just simply ask them, okay, if it wasn't a predatory system, I say it's a predatory system, okay? I posit that. All right. If it's not a predatory system, then why do teachers and the staff need a union? Okay. The kids are the lowest people on the totem pole in that, the people with the least amount of power. Kids don't have a union. They don't have they got their parents who are usually so disconnected, from what's going on that, because they haven't thought critically of it either. If this is such a great system for everybody to be a part of, why do teachers and the people that work in that institution need a fucking union? Unions are meant to be put together so that it protects the rights of the worker. Why do the workers need to be protected against the government, the public school system, that employs them? Unless the government itself does shit it ought not to do. Makes no sense. And you cannot. Nobody's ever going to tell me, it's just bullshit. If they're part of a union, it's so that they can barter for more because they feel like things are unfair and all that other bullshit and all that. Okay, well, if they feel it's so unfair, why are they there to begin with? The automatic concept of it being the way that it is, the automatic default that exists that way at all, goes to prove the point that it's a shit system to begin with. So if it's shit for the workers that are there and they need fucking protections and have an external third-party situation to argue for better wages and working conditions and all that type of shit, then who's there to argue for the fucking people who can't say anything about it at all and just have to sit there and fucking put up with it? The kids. So go fuck yourself when you tell me, oh, it's all about the kids. No, it's not. No, if it was, well, get rid of your fucking union and actually do your job. Teach these kids how to become fucking millionaires and billionaires. Teach them how to do something better than just sitting on their asses for the rest of their life on Easy Street trying to, work on some dumb job somewhere where they're not being challenged. Get them out of the bread and circuses. Teach them that, hey, real life is not going to the fucking bars in the evenings and drinking beer and watching football and all that other type of stupid shit to keep you distracted just so that the elite ruling class can take their percentage of whatever the fuck they want out of your paycheck and do all the dumb shit that they do with it. So anyway, that's just 2 examples of logic. Logic 101 of using the public schooling system as an example. Number 1, they frickin' lie to you and they're inefficient. And number 2, it's a frickin' predatory system. And which is proven by the fact that everybody that fucking works there needs goddamn union. And why in the world would we send our kids to this shit? Why? Why? What true benefit is it? Considering that when it comes down to the real brick and mortar of it, the same actual things that these kids could actually use towards, it doesn't take 12 years, all right? And 99% of the shit, I've known a lot of people in my life, very few of them use algebra at all. I'm not saying some don't. There's plenty of them that do. But they learn that either on the job or whatever for their particular little thing. And the basic math, hey, if they're really interested in math, go do it. Most of the people that I know don't use fucking math for shit, like other than just some basic minus, subtraction, bullshit, addition, whatever, just to balance their own budget at home, of which most of them are pretty bad at anyway. And, okay, the whole purpose, again, go to school to get an education, to make money and all that type of stuff. Okay, so be taught by some of the poorest people on the low end of the middle class at best how to go out and make money. That makes no sense. Anyway, no revolution. You guys have a great day. Logic 101. We're going to come back to another couple of subjects the same way next time. See ya.